I wonder how that sound effect worked. All right, guys, here we go. I promised last night, and as promised, I am a woman of my word. So today, I have the one, the only, Nicholas Irving, the Reaper, on my show. I'm so excited right now. George, you don't even know how much I love you for this. So here's the deal. Everybody that was watching last night, if you didn't catch it, I'll explain now. Nick was double booked, so we couldn't have him on. That was an unfortunate circumstance for both of us, but life goes on. And he has been able to connect with me today. So Nick, whenever you're ready, just jump on and, pop a comment on the comments, and I will invite you onto the stream. We have a lot of ground to cover today, so I just want to let everybody know I'll be doing the best that I can to keep everybody up on the questions and interacting with the audience. We're going to do the best that we can, but like I said, we have a lot of ground that we're going to cover. I have a lot of questions, so I'm going to do the best that I can to the questions answered, and hopefully at some point we can get to some audience questions, because I know I have such an exciting guest today, and you guys are going to be pumped to be able to ask some questions if you get a chance. Anyway, what else do we need to cover? I had a couple more things that I wanted to talk about before we jump on into it here. So for those of you that don't know, Nick Irving is a direct action sniper with the 75th Ranger Regiment, 3rd Battalion, and he did several tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. He was on the reality TV show on Fox. It's called American Grit. Hi, Nick. Great to see you. Thanks for coming on today. So appreciate it, because I know, look, we have 3 audience members. Okay, so I want to jump right into it, but from what I understand, you have a movie coming out, or that just came out. I've been really buried in work. So can you tell us a little bit about that really quick?
Working on working on a few movies behind the scenes, and in talks with certain people as far as producing. Well, yeah, just about a movie.
Busy guy.
A little bit. We'll try to be.
Yeah,
Everyone is.
I understand. I so get that. All right, so first question. We're going to jump right into it. Again, guys, I love that you're all here. I so appreciate that everybody is jumping in and watching. We're going to do the best we can to audience interact today, which I normally do, but we have a lot of ground to cover, and I'm going to do the best I can to get through it quickly so we can get to some audience questions. All right, so my first question is, because we're talking about the Vegas shooting, have all the mainstream media outlets reached out to yourself for a consultation to get facts as far as the shooting is concerned?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. But I mean, there's a lot of guys out there who have, more knowledge than myself, that have access to even common basic sniper knowledge,
Yeah.
shooter knowledge, things of that sort. But I think this more or less has more to do with not even spiritual, but like a personal type awareness issue more than
So
anything else.
are you on that train of thought that believes it was psychopathy that led to this incident? Or do you think that there's more to it?
Yeah, no one does. I don't think it's any more to it. I think that for someone to go out there and conduct a mass shooting of that sort, there's obviously some type of hatred in someone's heart. So I think, understanding where that hatred came from, or where it derives from, would more or less shed light onto the whole situation. Yeah, no one goes out there and does things like that to, make
Right.
anyone happy, or they don't do it because they're happy. It's something,
Right.
behind the scenes.
So tell us about rifle sounds and at distance and close proximity, because a lot of what people are saying is that, what we heard was 2 distinctive rifle sounds. And I have to say, from different vantage points where people were recording, it really did sound that way. As a student of physics and music, it really did sound like 2 delineated sounds. And I do shoot, but it's a very funky
Hmm.
topography there on the strip, with some flat and odd shaped buildings. So can you tell us a little bit about that and why things sounded the way they did?
Yeah, I would first have to ask, I guess, what sound are you relating to? Is it the supersonic crack of the bullet moving through the air? Not too many people get a chance to experience that or get a chance to
Right.
hear the opposing round or the bad end of a round,
Yeah.
end of a
So
rifle.
explain what that
So
means, because
it
I
just
think
depends
actually
on
that's a sticking point for a lot of people. I do know what you're saying, but I think a lot of people don't. So explain what that means, please.
yeah, so bullets travel faster than the speed of sound, generally, unless it's a subsonic, which means moving slower than the speed of sound. Anything above supersonic or hypersonic or moving faster than the speed of sound, like a plane or something like that, you hear that sonic boom it's a big object moving through the air at a high rate of speed. Something small as a pill or 5.56 or 7.62 are relatively small in nature, moving at a high rate of speed,
Yeah.
faster than the speed of sound. It's going to create a pop noise, like a ruler smacking a desk or something. So, being on the opposite end, you get a chance to experience that. As far as being on the or being the shooter, you hear the bang, and I think that's what a lot of people, watching movies and Hollywood and stuff like that,
Yep.
you hear that bang of the rifle or the
Mm-hmm.
report of the rifle, not the crack. So it does sound like two distinct, um, you know, uh,
Yeah.
weapons being used, but it's actually, the recorder and the supersonic crack going over their head opposed to the bang of the rifle.
Oh boy, we got haterade from Josh. I think he's teasing you though. He says,
Who's
why is
that?
First Ranger Battalion so much better
Oh
than
yeah, yeah,
Third?
yeah.
And then we're gonna get George chirping in here about
They got
Second. So
better hair. First bat has better hair.
better hair. They like the gel, like the seals.
Taller too. Yeah,
Are
I
they
think they're
tall?
taller too. No, they're better than seals, but
Every day, all the
I
time.
don't know.
All right. So, what
Yeah.
level of training would it take to execute a mission like this or an operation like this with the weapons that, can deliver so many rounds, so much damage, in just wholesale the way it was?
No training at all. Using a traverse and search type method, which I'm pretty sure he employed, whether he intended to or not. The recoil of the rifle and searching for targets would have naturally made that happen anyways. But it's a essentially spray
Yeah.
and pray method. There's no methodical thought out behind this. It's just putting a massive amount of rounds as fast as the weapon can fire, or as fast as the shooter can fire, in a certain amount of time, which is generally 3.5 seconds for a 30
Right.
round magazine clip.
The
30 round
mags.
magazine, said a clip.
Like we're
I'm
talking
thinking
about World
of
War II
too much cinema.
weapons.
But yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, or strip. World War
Okay.
II would be a strip. But anyway, yeah. But uh, you know, there's no training whatsoever. It's just spraying and hoping you hit something. And he was doing it at night. I just learned today he was looking to acquire some tracer rounds, which would have made it somewhat, I'm not going to say easier, but he would have been able to at least spot rounds. But there's no
Yeah.
training whatsoever. That just took a guy who was demented in the head, had a lot of wealth, and used his wealth to acquire a large amount of weapons, which is not necessarily bad. It's how you use it. But no training whatsoever. It was just
Knowing how to
shooting
cycle the weapon and
innocent
whatnot.
people in a crowd. Yeah.
Because, like,
Well, his weapon jammed a lot, so I'm pretty sure he didn't perform any weapons maintenance. So that goes to show that he didn't have an extensive knowledge on weaponry. He just knew how to pull a trigger and
seat a mag, that kind
yeah,
of
pull
thing.
a trigger.
Because that's pretty basic.
Yeah.
I mean, to clear a jam, sometimes, depending on how it is, but if because he was cycling
Well,
so
with
quickly, people are like, was it belt fed? There's so much speculation.
yeah, but why change a mag when you
Uh,
have 20
23 is the
plus in a
final
room,
count. Yeah,
and thousands
23
of
is the
rounds?
final count.
23.
Yeah,
You really have no reason to, like the
right.
Matrix or the movie The Matrix, where Neo and Trinity are running through the what was that, like an
Yeah,
airport or something like that, some security place, and just throwing the guns
right.
down as they went. There was really no need to
Yeah, if you can
reload.
carry all of that. And that actually takes us to, um, actually, I'm not going to skip that question. If you were to guess, how many rounds would you guess were deployed, like watching videos, knowing how many, injuries and deaths, based on your experience? Like, take a round count and guess it, because that's going to take us to another question.
700 to 1,000. Yeah, 700 to 1,000 rounds,
Yeah.
I would say.
Is there
Yeah.
realistically any way to know, apart from like
Um,
really trying to count shell casings and amass that?
that'd take a lot of work. I mean, most of the shell casings, I'm assuming, would have been in the room, but him firing out of the window, maybe some fell
Yeah.
on the street too. And, that's a lot of brass to recover. Yeah, it's a lot of brass to recover, but I'm sure, they've went through all that, seeing which ones had primer strikes, which ones didn't have primer strikes. His weapon did jam, so accumulating all the ammo that he did have and counting the expended rounds, it shouldn't, I'm
Yeah.
sure it'll come out.
Okay, so let's get back to some of the myths that are floating around. Shots fired were reported at more than 4 hotels. Consequently, those hotels that were reported are owned by the same company, the same NGM. Jim Murrin is actually the name of the owner. Security feeds and people talking, broken glass, cops, the whole nine. But it's all being kind of
Uh-huh.
suppressed. Now, I don't know if that's because it's not true or what. So they were reporting automatic weapon fire, but the line of sight distance from Bellagio to the venue where the shootings occurred is approximately 16 meters. I did the math. 1,600,
16
sorry,
meters?
1,600 meters.
Oh, okay.
Is it possible that there was a full auto
Mhm.
weapon system atop the Bellagio that could drop concert goers at that distance? What kind of weapon system would it take at that distance?
That distance, well, first to answer the first question, I think the varying sounds and stuff like that has to do with the nature of the structure of the building itself. You're looking at a very unique structure, and it's at elevation on a clear night. I'm pretty sure the air density was relatively, low
Yeah.
at that point in time, or no, relatively high. I'm sorry. Uh, Clear night. The way the building was shaped, and he had two, was it two shooting positions within that building? Almost the way the building is structured, almost opposing sides, or it had some degree of separation. So what one person hears on one side, you're going to have the sound masked by the flat surface of the building, forcing the sound to
Right.
echo a
That's
certain way.
physics.
Once you move and
Yep.
change positions, yeah, physics. Once you travel to the other side of the room, which allows I guess, a greater degree of open air, that sound is going to be allowed to travel and echo and echo and echo and bounce off of various targets throughout the desert. 1,600 meters for a shot like that, 5.56. It's no,
You
I
don't
don't,
see
I
it
don't see
happen.
it happen. There would have been no. I mean the yeah, the angle he would have had to aim up from that position, that would have been extreme plunging fire at that point. From his line of sight was like 400 yards, and I think that the average person doesn't get the Pythagorean theorem or how the angle of a shot affects the true distance against the angle distance, or what the shooter is seeing at that point in time. But 1,600 meters is quite a distance, and I think at that point in time you're looking at something in Las Vegas. The altitude's a little bit higher, so you could probably stretch it out with a uh, really really good 300 Win Mag,
Okay.
338 Lapua, or
So
Berger
we're
or
talking
something
about a really
50
big
cal, and
round.
the yeah, really big round, and there would have been, I think, using a bigger or larger round, the kill count would have been way higher. Yeah, way higher at that point in time. And then you're looking at a person who understands the ballistics and the
Yeah.
mathematics behind it, and actually how to employ a weapon system. And you're looking at a tripod that's on a
Okay.
the T&E and stuff like that to actually do that. And that was with the 5.56 on an
Yeah.
AR-15. I don't know what person
Yeah.
can do.
I mean, well, because the elevation of the Aria, which is right next to the Bellagio, is much taller. I mean, Aria is approximately 600 feet high, so about 200 meters. But, you're talking about your
Uh-huh.
1,600 foot, distance at, what, 200 meters elevation. It seems really improbable.
You take
It
that
seems
angle.
really improbable.
No, you would take that angle, find the cosine of that angle, and then multiply that by your perceived distance, and that's what would give
Yep.
you the true distance. So,
See, look at
yeah,
that. All that math. A
a lot
lot of
of math,
math, a
a lot of
lot of
math.
physics. Well, and the physics are actually what's tripping me up and giving me, these dubious thoughts as to whether or not um, first shooter, second shooter, because I've listened to the recordings until I'm almost cross-eyed. Because sound is a funny
Hmm.
thing. It travels in waves and particles. But the point that you make about the supersonic particles of sound, that actually
Hmm.
quadruples the difficulty with which we can calculate this math. And then all the building angles. The next door hotel is actually a pyramid. The one across the way has lots of odd surface areas. So we're talking about such a complicated math problem that it would probably take me 3 weeks to solve it. So I really don't.
Oh, that's another theory of math.
All right,
Yeah.
let's talk about suppressors for a minute, because there was a bill on the House floor that day that the shooting occurred regarding silencers or suppressors. So we all know it's called suppressors, but former Secretary Clinton aptly called them silencers because we love this media hysteria, this movie madness. It's a silencer. It silences a gun. You can, like, be shooting at your next door neighbor with a silencer on your gun and get away with it because it's silent. So
Yeah.
let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I have animals in the backyard. I wish it worked like
Right?
that. Yeah, it
Right?
doesn't
Being at
work
the
like
range
that.
would be so
Yeah,
pleasant if it actually worked that way.
yeah.
So let's talk about that for a minute.
Kind of
So
scary,
it's a
yeah.
twofold question. So let's talk about that for a minute. How much does a
hmm
suppressor actually dampen and deaden the sound of a rifle, let's say 7.62?
Well, you're looking at depending on what suppressor you have, how much money you're willing to spend, the treatment you used before using or utilizing the suppressor on the rifle, and then you're looking at the actual name suppressor itself. Suppressor does nothing more than suppress the decibel level or the audible level of a weapon without one. A silencer, don't know what that is to fully alleviate or fully, destroy all decibel matter, from a projectile moving at, 2,900 feet per second, caused by an explosion, a controlled explosion
Yeah.
inside of a rifle. To silence that entire thing, and he's using an AR-15, which would be almost nearly impossible to do because the bolt, once it's fired, yeah, if you pull the bolt back, it opens up. Sound has to go, somewhere, the path of least resistance. Um,
Oy,
yeah, there
I
you
can't even
go.
pull.
You have to fly and all that. There's no way to really silence, a weapon, and regardless of the fact if the rifle is or the bullet's moving faster than the speed of sound, then there has to be a supersonic
Yeah.
frac. Unless you're using subsonic ammo, and at that distance, subsonic ammo would have lessened the kill count and the injured. More injured probably than an
So if you
actual
were to
injured.
assign it a percentage value, how much would the percentage value be that the sound is
Mhm.
dampened when you apply a let's call it very high end. Let's pad the estimate. And we'll call it a very high end, top of the line
Mhm.
suppressor to, say, my standard AR-15 chambered in 5.56. It's not chambered in 7.62. How much percentage wise?
As loud as you can clap.
So that
If you
much.
clapped really loud, yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
It's not very loud.
Be a clap. It'd be a loud,
And that's the
loud
amount of
clap, a loud clap.
reduction, correct?
That's what it would sound like. The
Okay.
finished product. It would sound
Okay.
like,
So the weapon
yeah.
systems that this guy
And it would
used,
also take
the
away some
weapon
of the
systems that
fun.
he used, with the weapon
What's that?
system that this guy used,
Mhm.
supposedly, I'm still not buying that he was the shooter. There's so much. There's so much.
No?
It's just, we're going to get into it.
I mean, another theory.
What?
Yeah, yeah. I've heard stories about, people getting shot from different angles too. I think that was
Yeah.
another theory.
Sorry, my tripod is falling over
Yeah.
here. Technology.
Uh, I would say with a lot of theories out there. One of the ones I heard was people getting shot from different angles. But I mean, you're looking at a guy shooting at a downward angle on a relatively
Yeah.
hard surface, surrounded by metal stuff like that. So
And
bullets ricochet and
people
spin and
run
sprawl
and
and
people were running different directions. So that to me is not so much the plausibility factor. It's I don't know. I think like all the autopsies, rounds that are going to be recovered is going to tell us a lot, but that investigation is going to take weeks. That
yeah.
evidence collection is going to take weeks.
Oh yeah.
And examining all those
hmm
forensics, that is probably one of the biggest crime
Yeah.
scenes in the history of the United States, apart from the World Trade Center.
It is. Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Biggest shooting.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So how would a suppressor behave after putting, okay, so we've got at least 700 rounds, right? So that's 23
Oh
mags.
yeah.
So how would one weapon behave
No, yeah.
after, say, 4 standard 30s run through it? How would a suppressor be acting? Would it be really hot? Would it melt? Would it
One, it's
fail?
gonna get really,
Yeah.
really, really, really hot. Like the curtains are melting at that point. The carpet on the hotel floor would have melted
4
at that point.
mags.
Um, yeah, and I don't think he was using one weapon system. You got to think how metal and steel and stuff like that, how it manipulates and changes its
Right.
properties once it gets hotter. So it'd be a completely different scene. So definitely, I wouldn't say no suppressors. I think people are mainly getting confused with the supersonic cracks and what those different sounds sound like. And you get the double effect, triple effect when it comes to the echo as it travels over great distances
Right.
over a flat
And I mean,
surface.
sound does bounce because it
So
moves
you
in waves and particles. So, none of this is implausible to me. I can't reconcile the shooter, the motive. The crime scene photos are actually the biggest sticking point to me. So, and we're going to get to that. Um, so it's not a
mhm.
stretch, in your opinion, to lend credibility to the idea that there were multiple shootings. Oh no, hang on. Multiple shooters in multiple places, making it impossible for concert goers to distinguish amidst all the chaos. So it would be really easy for people to know
I
that.
would say, where are the other shooters? I would think we'll ask where were the other shooters at, and the majority of the hotels that I've been in, they don't have the doors that open because people
Yeah.
commit suicide. So we're looking at the lack of broken glass and the lack of people inside the hotel room saying there's a guy with the 5.56 or 7.62 shooting above me. I mean, in a confined space like that, in a room, when you're shooting a gun, it shakes walls and it's a really, really scary sound. It
Yeah.
sounds like thunder. It's an unmistakable
Yeah.
sound. So there's a lack of that,
I
you
mean,
know.
people,
And even
go
with
ahead.
suppressors, at a ground level, let's say if somebody had a machine gun with a suppressor and was at ground level, unseen or something like that, you definitely hear that. It would be. Yeah.
Um,
I see a one question. Sean said, "Would a person with a concealed weapon be able to, I guess, take care of that?" No.
Not at that
It's
distance.
a at the base of the building. That's a yeah, 96 to 100 plus meter shot straight up. With a pistol at
Yeah,
night
you
is
got to
chaos
be
directly
like,
under the building.
that's
And then you have to find a way how to make the bullet go straight up and then
right.
curve into the window, which is a and if you're at the concert itself to find, locate the shooter, the chaos, and draw your pistol from your 12 o'clock position or whatever cool guy thing you have to lob a round that's moving relatively not that much faster than the speed of sound. By the time it
Yeah.
gets there, it's already less than the speed of sound. If you've not equated the wind and stuff like that from a pistol round that's moving, slow at
Yes.
that point. And if you manage to hit them with that one shot, go play the
Well,
lottery.
and it's such an up angle. There are so many factors there, and even if you could detect his position, which I mean, it was a stroke of genius to do it at one of the most reflective hotels. The muzzle flash hard to detect, especially on the strip where it's all glimmering lights and everything's lit up at night. It's not
Yeah.
going to stand out. Muzzle flash on a dark night will stand out normally, but I mean, isn't that something that you
Mhm.
combated as a sniper when you were working? Muzzle flash, giving away your position, not just, the crack of the rounds.
No, I had a suppressor. I had a suppressor, but before that, I'd see one of big influences on everything leading up to this point when I joined. Old team leader, a machine gun team leader of mine is on here. Everything I knew about machine guns was from call them. Uh,
Uh-oh, we got to pause. There you are. Are you back? I have audio, but you're frozen.
but
There we go. We're good. Yep,
good.
keep speaking.
But yeah, machine guns, learn everything from him. So, from a sniper's perspective, one, you would have heard, a sniper's not going to utilize a spray and pray method. It's very methodical and thought
Yeah,
out, and the time on target would have not been as great, you know.
everything is like, get it
But it
done,
was
move.
it was pretty. I'm not going to say smart, but it was well thought out to put his locate a room that was at the corner of the hotel. It gives you more time on target opposed to being right next to an elevator or something like
Yeah,
that,
and
or
he didn't have to
traffic.
cycle mag changes because he had 23 weapons. So if he had a malfunction, he could just go to the next weapon and cycle through what he could until he had a malfunction on that one, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
So, dun, da, da, da. In your life, in your career, in your experience, do you find that the truth is stranger than fiction often?
Yeah, yeah. More times than not, 9 times out of 10, if you ask anyone who's been in a crazy firefight, the truth is just stranger than, what we can comprehend. I've seen guys with bullet holes go in and out of clothes, and in a pretty big firefight, I've seen uh, RPGs do things that they're, not supposed to do. Guys get blown up with a, 50 plus, 100 plus IED. knew a guy who stepped on an IED and nothing, pretty much nothing. He had to wash out his eyes and stuff like that. My spotter fell down
The
almost a hundred
whole,
foot well and
I'm
fractured
dying
his
to talk to
tibia.
you about that
Yeah,
because that stuck out to me so much. When I read your book, guys, if you've not read Nick's book, you have to get it. It's awesome. It talks about all of his work in theater from Afghanistan, right? Or was it both?
yeah, one's
Okay, so
Afghanistan.
when I read that part of the story, I was so astounded from your descriptors, and I still couldn't fully
Yeah,
visualize what I think you were trying to deliver because it was so incredible. The whole thing was so incredible. And I just want to like sit down and talk about it with
oh
you. Like,
yeah,
tell me about this. So you guys have to buy the book.
it's the best. It
Yeah,
was
you guys
crazy. Yeah,
have to buy the book to read about it
yeah,
because this is
crazy.
nutty story, Nick. Tell them briefly about it, but don't spoil it. Spoil it.
Yeah, fast rope in on target. The assaulters were about to go do some bad things to bad people, and on the way there, my spotter fell down this nearly 100-foot hole, fractured his tibia, and that's it. Stayed with them, and that was a pretty intense, scary episode. But don't know what that hole was or what it was used for. It was just a weird night. But yeah, things are really crazy in combat, especially when you're getting shot at. I'm sure there's a ton of guys who can tell you stories of getting shot in one spot and doing another. I've seen bullets go through a leg and come out a thigh or a stomach or something like that. Watched a guy die, sitting up essentially. He was standing when he was hit, but by the time gravity took over, I don't know if it took over all the way or his muscles
That's
stayed tight,
crazy.
but things just do yeah, not many people get shot and talk about the aftermath of why they did what they did, but it just
Yeah.
is what it is. I think that the facts are just a little bit strange
Okay.
sometimes.
So the media, the mainstream media seems to have glommed onto what's called a bump stock, which will take
Hmm.
a weapon like mine, my basic AR-15 here, Cali Goal, everybody, because I live in California. Um,
You need a red dot
oh
on that or
yeah, we
something.
haven't decided. That the old man and I are fighting about it. Actually, I have a I have a
Get a
love
sight
affair
for it.
with Trijicon, so we're going back and forth. He likes aim point,
Okay.
so we're going back and
Yeah.
forth. It's the headbutt of the massive.
I think the aim point's gonna win.
Well, now I know who's voted in on it. Thanks for taking his side, Nick.
Yeah, I think the aim point's gonna win. Hey, I'm just picking aim point because it
Ah,
starts with the
got
letter
it.
A.
Turkeys, George, are you so on my side on this? Please tell me you're on my side. Like, no one's ever on my side. All right, so let's talk about the bump stock. Can you tell everyone what that is and how it affects the actual performance and mechanics of the weapon, apart from just making it fully auto, murder machine? Tell us about how it would affect, would it cause feed jams? Would it cause overheating? Tell us about that, please.
Yeah, it's basically using the laws of inertia and basic physics. You're taking an object that's the buttstock, placing it on your shoulder, and opposed to using a pullback method, it's kind of a pull forward method, to allow the recoil to bounce back and then hit your trigger finger and repeatedly fire it over and over again, opposed to using something in your muscle of your finger to pull the trigger as fast as you can. You're working against recoil, side acquisition, and your trigger finger just doesn't move that fast unless you've been picking your nose really good, since inception. But
What's
yeah, I think that the weapon system used and the buttstock used, yeah, that's pretty much what's essentially letting them to, shoot off what sounds like a simulated fully automatic weapon system. But you can tell at the end of it, that buttstock started to why, I don't personally like the buttstock. I had a chance to test it or see it when it first came out, before it came out in Vegas. Yeah, I don't really like it, and you can hear the stutters at the end of this burst and stuff
yeah.
like that, where either he was getting tired or it's just the nature of that buttstock. But it's just basically working with the laws of
Yeah.
physics and inertia.
Nick, Moose, you're fired. We are not best friends anymore, Moose. Okay, so if I were to put that on here, which I would never ever do,
Hmm.
if I were to put that on
Don't
here,
do it. It's not worth your money.
what physical toll would that take
Not
on
worth
me?
your
I'm
money.
5'3" and 140 pounds. What physical toll would that take on me? Would I be able to stand there and cycle 4 mags with that easily?
It's a 5.56. It's barely bigger than a 22
Right.
caliber, cartridge. So yeah, you could sit there and you can. And I've shot M4s off my nose in training and off my chin and forehead and throat and stuff like that. There's really no recoil behind it. So yeah, you can sit there all day. Now, had it been a 7.62, yeah, you're gonna, feel it at the end of the day, if not have a few
So even
bruises. But 5.56, no,
so
you can
even with
ride
that
that.
bump stock, I
Oh
can
yeah,
still do
yeah.
that physically.
I mean, you're still working with you're still working with like a buffer spring and stuff like that. There's a long process once the cartridge actually the primer hits the cartridge and goes off inside of the chamber. The piston drives back and then it hits the little buffer spring, and then the buffer spring absorbs the majority of that small little recoil. Yeah, there really isn't much recoil behind it. You can, I mean, I have a almost 1-year-old son. If he were able to shoot a 5.56, I would let him shoot
Yeah.
it. It wouldn't
Yep.
do anything to him.
Okay. So
Well, I'll
what
wait till like 5 or 3 or something.
we
I'll
started
wait till my
I
son's
started when I
3 or
was
5 or something.
5. We start our kids like on the 22s and whatnot when they're pretty young, outdoors, just no problem. It's good. My kids are learning safety.
Yeah,
Like my kids have good muzzle control and trigger, control and everything with their Nerf guns because we practice it at
yeah,
home with the plastic guns. When they go to the range, it's not, it's not a booger hook. It's just my kids aren't constantly playing like it's a toy. They
yeah.
don't treat their toys like toys. Therefore, it's a habit when we get to the range. It seems pretty simple, but
Definitely a lot of toy. Yeah. 90% of the people who get shot with pistol rounds survive, and 90% of the people who get shot with rifle
yeah.
rounds die. So
Yep.
definitely not a toy. Rifles are
Yep.
not a
Okay,
toy.
so people seem obsessed with him getting all those guns and all those thousands and thousands and thousands and
Wow.
thousands of rounds up to his room. No problem or no way?
Mhm. No problem. I think we're neglecting to remember how long of a process and how long, how much planning he
Right.
put behind this. This wasn't like a spur of the moment type thing, and he's a wealthy guy, and has a gold card or platinum or diamond or black card for that certain hotel. Getting that much ammunition and that much weaponry up to a hotel over the span of a week isn't
Right.
really hard. That's taking 2 weapons here and a briefcase. And I've been to, Vegas, and I've been to many of hotels, and I carry wherever I go. And I've been to a few shooting schools where, there's, 5,000 plus rounds in a hotel room and 5 or 6 rifles. And
Yeah. Well,
that's
I mean,
easy.
clearly for me, that was like the easiest part of the equation. I thought, you know what? No one's ever traveled with a female celebrity if they think that 10,000 or 5,000 rounds for that matter, 5,000 rounds and 23 guns whose barrels you can detach um, up to a room.
Yeah,
Clearly, you've never traveled with a celebrity female because it's the shoes, the cases, the steamer trunks, the makeup, the hair, all of it. And it would be
yeah,
way more for that woman to travel than it would be this guy with 23 long guns and 5,000 or 8,000 rounds of ammo because that's an ammo can. 1,000
and
rounds like that is an ammo can.
an elevator, and yeah, exactly. And you have an
Yeah.
elevator too, and a bellhop boy, or a person who you can slip money to and say, hey, I'm pretty sure a guy with that much money doesn't carry his luggage at the age of
Peeling them
64.
off. Just peeling off those Benjis.
Yeah, it's money.
The bellboys know everything.
Yeah.
Always ask the bellboys. They know everything.
Oh,
It
money
does.
talks in
Believe
that world.
me.
Vegas.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, the venue lights, this is a question that actually I haven't been hearing a lot about, but I've seen video and I've been looking into it. Um, Berna, you're so funny. The venue lights were doused after it seemed like the shooting had stopped. Sorry, I hear a Black Hawk outside because it's Fleet Week here. Um, the venue lights
Oh
were
yeah.
doused after the shooting seemed to have stopped. There was a long delay of shots. Would you call this a good idea or not, considering the circumstances? Just because there were so many wounded, the EMTs were trying to work, and that someone at the venue doused the lights. Like, good idea or bad idea?
Good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Turn off the lights. Oh yeah. Any special operations guy can tell you they work better at night. There's a reason behind that. The enemy can't see. If you're looking, overlooking a concert that's got floodlights all over it and stuff like that, and I'm in a dark room shooting at night, I have the
Yeah.
advantage at that point in time. I don't need tracers or anything like that. But if you turn off the lights, if you ever look at something in the dark or in the daytime, and then you turn the lights on or off, and you get that little
Right.
burnt image in your head, and wherever you look,
Retinal
that image is
scars.
at. Same thing would have probably
Right.
happened to him too. Yeah, you start seeing the concert here, here,
Right.
here. You know.
Smart. Okay. So much speculation regarding so many details, of course. But do you believe it is because, which is, I'm on this train, so many people don't understand principles, concepts, and skills of shooting in general?
Do I believe
Well,
they
do you
don't
believe that
understand
there's so
it?
much
Oh
speculation and
yeah, yeah, I
crazy
could.
talk
Yeah.
back and forth regarding the mainstream media and what they're delivering? Because they deliver what the people want according to their narrative. Everybody knows this. But do you believe that it's easy to sell because
Mhm.
people have never put a weapon in their hands and trained on it just for even an hour?
Well, it's even easier to sell when a guy like I know Wolf Blitzer or something has never been shot at. So it's easier to sell when the general mass public has, never been on the receiving end of a weapon or been in a firefight. You look at the percentage of guys who actually have been under circumstances like that, shot at with what we call a machine gun. Not too many people. There's like, less than 1%.
Yeah, it seems to me if more people would just take a class or just sit there for an hour and put some mags through a rifle and a handgun, they would have such a different opinion about so many things.
Oh yeah, you can burn through a lot of ammo,
Yeah,
pretty quickly. Yeah, you can burn through
everybody
a lot of
does. If you
ammo.
can afford it, burn it.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Oh yeah.
so do you think that the mainstream media manufactured hysteria and cries for violence from the alt left, like deliberately from the alt left of late? Because I live here near Berkeley, and we have organizations
Mhm.
here that outright prescribe violence for anybody who's white, anybody who's right, anybody who's at all conservative, anybody who says they're libertarian because they're not on the left.
Yeah.
They cry for outright violence. Do you think, just your lay opinion, that could have possibly contributed to this person's motive?
Just the amount of hate being distributed in today's society? No, definitely not. I think that, well, adding to the hype depends on who you listen to and who you watch and what type of person you are. First of all, if anybody is willing to go commit an act of such based off of someone else's opinion or based off of how much information they're being, given, whether it's negative or positive, I think that automatically gives a key sign of who that person is. I'm not going to go, do a bell tower type shooting and eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches because I can and because NFL players are feeling a certain type of way, and you know, Antifa saying this or whoever's saying what. I'm not going to really get, I don't have the time and I don't have the energy to even invest, like if you want to call it your spirit, into what someone
Yeah.
else's opinion is. I think that could be the big mix up. Yeah, I just live by different rules, but I kind of worry about, what I'm doing and I just don't feed into mass hysteria. Usually when things are being put on you that's, you know, I guess all over the news and
Hmm.
stuff like that, there's not an agenda, but there's a narrative they're trying to push on
Right.
you for a reason. Just like they call television, television. It's
Right.
telling your vision. Television
Very
programming.
true.
What are they programming? They're programming
Yep.
something through vision. So, yeah.
So, all right, Moose. You know what, Moose? You're killing me today. You can tell that like we've been friends for a long time because he's reading my mind. Okay, so I didn't send this question to you because I wanted a very candid answer, and I know I said no gotchas, but I don't consider it a gotcha.
Mhm.
Do you take a certain amount of pride in all the vets that were in the crowd that so willfully ran to the fire to protect their friends,
Yeah.
strangers, like with their very bodies, knowing that they had no plate carrier on, knowing they had no weapon to fight back? It was so moving to me to hear so many of these stories coming out. Do you take a certain degree of pride in knowing that you're part of that kind of that group of graduates, like that would still so willingly run into the fire knowing the
I don't
consequences?
take, I don't personally take personal pride. I guess I wasn't there. I look at those guys like, not even motivators, but inspiration. And I think that that's what America needs to
Yeah.
strive for. I wasn't there personally. And to sit here and say, oh, I would have done this and would have done that. I can't say. I don't think anybody can say unless you were there, and you have different types of, individuals, fight or flight and stuff like that. I've been in situations, but to say that, I would have reacted a certain way, I can, pretty surely say I'm not going to sit there and watch someone, get shot and bleed out and walk over them. That's just not my,
Right.
makeup. But as far as those guys who, rescued and applied first aid and took people to the hospital, that's nothing more than, pure courage. And hats off to those guys. Not too many people stayed and used their bodies as human shields. You have that one, what was it, a Marine or Army vet who used his
I think
body
it
as
was
a human
Marine.
shield. You don't see that often. You rarely see it in combat. Usually, the good guys have guns as well, and we're able to return fire. To not have anything and still, stay there with the person and use your body as a human shield for someone you don't know, says a lot to where we need to be, opposed to where
Right.
we currently are.
And that's kind of where I wanted to leave it off. I so appreciate that you came on today. If you have a few more minutes, we can scroll through questions and you can kind of glance through and answer. If you have to go, I
Yeah, yeah.
understand. All right, so let's crack this open.
No, I got like
All
five
right,
minutes.
guys,
I'm
if you
fine.
did not get your question answered and you still want it answered, crack them off right now. We're going to do a rapid fire round of 5 minutes. We have 5 minutes left with Nick. So let's get them going really quick. Don't waste time. Come on, y'all. Thank you. Yeah, Robin, thanks for I had so many friends that reached out to me about this, and I cannot even express to you how deeply I appreciate it, because my tirade lately has been such that we are so divided as people because we're being told we're divided as people. We have a cognitive dissonance that we are embodying as the American public instead of believing our eyes and what we see, which is, I like my neighbors. They're nice. We didn't vote for the same people, but when
Yeah,
their car's not running, my husband jumps it happily. And
that's where it starts. Yeah, that's where it starts. I think that, everybody's getting caught up with what is happening over here and who said what and who hates who. If you look at Earth as a whole, yeah, essentially Earth is a living object. It's, made of a whole bunch of different cells and stuff like that. There's no different than us. We're made up of trillions and trillions and trillions of cells. What we are on Earth is nothing more than its cells
yeah,
and stuff like that. And when you have a cancer, the remaining cells go in to fight that cancer or fight that bad, that bad ailment. And it starts there. In order to get rid of a cancer in society, you have to all bond together and
yep,
react as one, to force that out. And, it starts by what you put into it. The cells don't get stronger, by putting in junk. So when you put in good stuff and good stuff only, the cells become stronger. And there's no different than, how we live on
right.
Mother
And
Earth.
so we can, stand together and fight the actual problems that we're facing as a people, or we can just listen to this manufactured hysteria that we're being told because it serves someone's agenda. When was the last time that you encountered someone who had way too much power for one person that did nothing but good with it? Power corrupts. Everyone knows this. And yet we want to
Oh,
place
wow. Yeah.
utter
Yeah.
faith in people that have endless amounts of power. Why do we do that?
Like we have no idea how to be adults. And,
Right.
you know, that's what I don't
Right.
understand.
So it's a little bit disturbing for me. I mean, I'm from a history family here in the United States. I'm 7 generations down from one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. So it's personal. It's deeply personal. Our family name is on that document,
Oh, yeah.
and to betray those tenets by
Yeah.
acting like a jackass in the general manner of just hating my neighbor because they didn't vote for the same candidate I did. I had a certain love for President
Yeah.
Obama because he served. And I mean, as messed up as that
Hmm.
sounds to some people, I didn't like him, but I had a certain affection for him
Hmm.
because he served. That office is not an easy one to occupy, and I respect that office. It's
Yeah.
not easy,
Yeah,
you know?
definitely, definitely. I don't like a lot of people, but I'm nice to them.
Right.
I think that's where it starts. I like you or I don't. I used to be different, but over time, I learned different things from different mentors and stuff like that, and started looking things positively. And life gets better when you look at things positive. And once, if it can happen with a guy like me, I'm not the brightest or most badass dude you've ever met or anything like that. Far from it. But if it
Right.
starts with you. You only get better, and society will only get better. When we start caring and worrying about
Yes.
ourselves, not what some guy said. And what some guy did. You, of course, get pissed off. And if a person goes out and commits an act of violence against innocent people, force that guy out,
Right.
call him out.
Right.
Don't encourage it. Don't go copycat it. So, we need to come together and
Yep.
force out that
Call it on the
killing.
carpet. Okay, so did you see any discrepancies in the crime scene photos that you saw?
No, I saw one where someone posted up, well, why is his leg underneath the rifle? I'm like, well, the rifle's on a bipod, and then, it creates a gap. When a person collapses after committing suicide, if he was standing, let's say his leg folded underneath his body and muscles relaxed after that, they kicked underneath the rifle that was sitting up. Why is the rifle behind him? Or he's laying on top of one. Well, usually when you are, doing all the stuff that I'm sure he was doing in that room, throwing down weapons and stuff like that, he didn't pick out a perfect, clean spot on the Mandalay carpet to say, I'm going to end
Right.
it right here. He fell on top of
Yeah.
some
I mean,
pillows.
if that's the case, like if he was cycling his weapon and he had a malfunction, I would toss it too if I were just trying to get through, if I was just draining mags.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I can't say I wouldn't do the same
Oh,
thing.
yeah. Weapon gets hot after a while, and pretty sure that handguard started to smoke up on him, and you can hear the long separation in between the burst. Either he's requiring a new weapon, trying to clear a double feed or a jam, or moving positions to another side of
Right.
the hotel.
And a good ranger always cleans up after himself, right? Or picks up his stuff.
That's right. That's exactly why. That's why you only see this side of the room. It's junk enough.
I love it. All right, Nick, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
This was amazing. It is one for the ages. So I hope you don't mind if I chop it up and share it in different places at some point. I love
Go for
it.
it.
I hope you will come back at some point. Again, I'm so grateful. So thank you,
Okay.
thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right,
No
we will
worries.
talk to you soon. Ciao.
Bye.
All right, guys. So that was an epic, epic, epic almost hour with Nick Irving. If you do not have his book, you must get it. I am giving you a direct order here and now. Go get it. It's called The Reaper. It's available on Amazon. It's an amazing read. And he actually has a new book out that is a fiction book based on a character that he's familiar with, so to speak. So that one I have not read yet, but I'm going to read it soon so I can give my critique on that one too. I love you guys so much for logging in. I love you guys for asking questions. Please, revisit this one and share it if you like. We are hopefully going to get to some point where we can chop it up because I think, 50 minutes is a pretty long video. But please send him your thanks. Follow him on Facebook and Instagram, official Reaper 33. And you can watch all of his awesome exploits, reality shows, movies, all kinds of cool stuff that Nick does. And he's just really, really a tremendous guy. Who's going to come on my show with like 5 people watching? But he did, and I am so grateful. Anyway, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Kath, we didn't get our answers answered. Okay, so it was my phone was stuck, and I couldn't get back to everybody's things, which is why I asked everyone to ask again. We can go back and revisit everything later. Nick agreed to come on with me again. So if you guys submit them to me via DM, I'll make sure that I get it on my battery list for the next time I have him on. It wasn't because we picked out any one person. We had a limited amount of time and a lot of ground to cover, and Nick actually stayed an extra 15 minutes with me because he is an awesome guy like that. Once again, I'm so grateful to all of you. I love you all so much. Thank you. DM your questions, and I will add them to my list for the next time I have him on. Hopefully, we're going to have either George or a mystery police officer that is local next week to talk about some things politically that are kind of unique to California and a few of our big metropolis here. So we have some interesting things coming up. I'd love to see everybody again. Much love. Ciao.